Yes, hello, folks. Welcome along to what is the season finale in footballing terms of the Left Wing Back podcast. Coverage, of course, of the Club Football Championships in Carlow over the last 5 or 6 weeks. Brought to you in association with Carlow Electrical Services, Ray Whelan Limited, the Arboretum, PFT Travel, Talbot Fitness, Seamus Bourne Electrical, J&J Services, Scott's Bouncing Castles, Earth Spas, and Connolly's Top Line Bidinstown. So it's gone by in a shot. It's been a whirlwind. We've had a little bit of everything over the past 5 or 6 weeks. And we're going to have a little bit of chaos tonight when it comes to teams of the year, players of the year, and of course we're going to talk about the 6 new county champions as well. So we'll start with ladies first. St. Bridget's taking the intermediate ladies championship on Saturday. Bennakerry Tinryland winning the senior title. Articles, reports are up on leftwingback.com. Jamie Wall attended those for us and got some post-match interviews as well. So thanks to Jamie for that. We've also, in the past hour or so only, completed the reports on the 4 finals from the weekend. Such was the amount of headaches, I guess, throughout the day in terms of picking teams of the years. And we'd be lying if we said there wasn't one or two of them kind of sorted maybe before we kicked off here as well. Just before we kicked off, I should say, and my own included. So what we have decided to do is our contributors are going to give theirs, and when we have a little bit of time to breathe, maybe over the next day or two, we'll see what were the most common names that cropped up, and we'll pick a general one. So that's literally where it was at for the last 24 hours or so. So we have to say, yeah, in terms of the ladies, well done. Well done also to Aska, to St. Mullins, to Clonmore, and indeed to Airog. And not forgetting those who lost out in county final day as well, who all played a massive part in making the occasion what it is. And stewards, everyone involved, that makes county final day so special. Officials, it doesn't just happen with players and mentors. A lot of people put in a lot of work to make the whole thing happen. And the weekend, as you said, just like the last 6 weeks, went by in a whirlwind. So that's enough of my ramblings. We have a first message in from Brian O'Donoghue, who is overseas and can't join us this evening. So an opportune time to say thanks to Dunzer for his contributions over the last 6 weeks as well. And not jealous at all. He's in their mid-20s or 30s in terms of degrees Celsius at the minute. Not quite like that with us. So let's bring in our guests here this evening. We have Mick Yo. How are you doing, Mick?
Hi, Kevin. How are you?
We have Asher, not too bad. We've Paul Byrne.
How's lads?
No, Paul.
We have Mr. James Clark. How are you doing, sir?
Hi, lads.
James is back in the Love Lounge there, isn't he?
I'll make a few adjustments on these things here because we look like billboards here. I think a lot of us do. But anyway, Stephen Barwick will be on with us in approximately 35 minutes' time. Joe Nolan can't be with us this evening, but all the guys have made valued contributions throughout the last number of weeks, and everyone that has done something for us, guys, I just want to say thanks a million, including those you can see on the screen at the minute. So, guys, I really don't know where to start because we had an awful lot going on over the past number of days with these county finals, but I suppose we'll go to the one that's in most recent memory, which may not live long in the memory in years to come, and that's the senior final between Airog and Tinryland. So, Clarky, I'll actually start with you on this one, if that's okay. Mick, obviously, having Tinryland connections, we'll try to keep it as impartial as we can, I suppose. And likewise, when it comes to Clonmore, we will keep Paul Byrne away from it from that point of view, which might be hard, but we will try anyway. Clarky, talk to us about it, right? So, in terms of the first half, just say from my point of view anyway, it was a bit like, I suppose, if a Fair City omnibus or something was on, you could have fallen asleep, maybe woken up, and you wouldn't have missed a whole lot. You'd still probably catch something before the whole thing was over. That's how the first half went in my eyes. But how did the whole thing look to you, do you think, over the 60 or so?
Yeah, well, I suppose it's a topic around the county for the last number of weeks since Tinryland were in the semi-final and then final, just the way they play, and people will see it as being really negative. And I suppose there's a couple of things. I mean, if you look at both throw-ups, they won the both throw-ups and immediately went backwards with it. You know, it's not often you see that in Gaelic football, or, you know, the first thought of all the players is to go backwards. It's not to go forwards. But I suppose the first half, they kicked 5 bad wides in the first half, you know, and I mean, they did work the ball well. While it's not easy on the eye, they did work the ball well, and they got the chances to shoot. They were probably very bad wides, in fairness. Now, listen, to the purist, it's not nice to look at. It's not good to look at, but it has got him to 2 county finals now. I mean, they didn't win them, and it's all about winning. At the end of the day, I mean, it's great to get to county finals and that, but bar you win them, it's no good to anybody. To me, I like Aerogue played defensively as well, but they were seemingly able to break better, found more space, got to freeze at the vital time. Paul Broderick in the second half kind of hit the upright with a shot as well, So to win a county final, you need everything to go right. And because there was a lot more pressure on Tinryland that they hadn't won it in so long, when you start missing shots, you start chasing a bit, and start maybe losing the shape that you might have had in the earlier rounds. And I think that was the case, especially in the first half. Although it was only 4 points to 2 at halftime, they had missed 5-6 chances. And in the earlier rounds, they were getting ahead and being more comfortable in their structure,
Clarky, one interesting thing there that I never really thought a whole lot about, you just said it, and that was the 2 throw-ins. And when you're looking at this from a coaching point of view, that is one of the few occasions where you're going to guarantee yourself you have 15 on 15. As in, like, there's 6 forwards or 6 backs, and there's an opportunity to make something happen. So, I don't know about you guys, but definitely from teams I've been involved with, we've had a plan for winning the throw, right? And some classic ones, I guess, would be where Aerogue at some stage during the 90s used to put the 6 forwards across the 45, knowing that Garvin Ware would likely win the throw-in, knock it down to Jordy Morrissey, whoever was beside him. Ball is put in over the top. And a lot of teams didn't cop what they were doing, but they'd runners onto it straight away, and it's an automatic goal scoring opportunity. Another one is, I guess, when you leave maybe just the full forward in there. The 2 corner forwards run out, the 2 wing forwards run out, and even the centre forward might run out. The ball's popped into 14, the midfielder either blasts on with the run or the centre forward checks the run. And again, it's a goal scoring opportunity. So I think that is actually very interesting. And it's not something I copped, I'll be honest, that they did opt maybe to go back from that point of view. And what an early goal would have done, I suppose, from their point of view as well. And they've only scored 1 in the championship, Clarky,
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's because all the pressure was on them, and it's not, I mean, as regards being the county final, maybe with 1 or 2, but all the players would have played the year before. So the build up to the county final is always kind of stressful for a player, but they were used to that, It's just on the day you need everything to go right, and it just didn't fall for them. And then a little bit of panic sets in, and they start thinking about maybe the year before where they didn't win and the disappointment, and they tried to try hard. I mean, nobody can take it away from Tinryland how hard they tried and how hard they played, and to work that system, they must have trained 3 nights a week for the last 2 years and just work on the system, Just listen, it's not easy on the eye, but I would say Tinryland have a choice to make now, Do they believe that they can move forward and they have 2 county final appearances in the bag? Can they move forward and bring in maybe, to go with the management team, a good football coach? I mean, we're not going to mention Paul there. I'll tell you about Clonmore. To me, Clonmore were the ultimate team at the weekend. It was pure football. Everything they did was spot on. Everything was right. Okay, so do they need more football coaching? And listen, forget about the tactics. You know what I mean? Like, when you're in a county final, just go for it. There's a certain amount of tactics, but if you win a throw up, drive it down the throat of the opposition. I mean, my idea is, if the quicker you get the ball in, I mean, you're going to catch somebody off guard. Okay, if you have a good full forward, corner forward, knowing the ball's coming in left and right, especially now with the mark, I mean, if they catch it, you have a simple score, So can they move on? I don't know.
Yeah, Mick, would you mind jumping in on this particular juncture, I suppose? And I know there's an attachment here, and I probably should say commiserations to yourself and congratulations to Paul Byrne and Clonmore, just while we have both you on the screen. A real agony and ecstasy type of vibe we have here this evening. But in relation to what James has kind of said there, Mick, where do Tinryland go from here? Is there a place where they can evolve from in terms of bringing a little bit more flair to it and to create more scoring opportunities, or what is the next step for them?
Well, look, the context is important. When this particular management team took over, things weren't great. They were fairly close to relegation, unless I'm mistaken. I have to think back 3 years, and I think it was COVID time. I think they might have ended up in a relegation battle, only there was no relegation of the senior. Am I correct in that?
They were definitely in the doldrums, 100%.
Yeah, well, put it that way, right? So in that context, like making 2 finals, if someone had told them 3 years ago, you're going to make the next couple of county finals, thinking to snap the hand off you. I think the thing that's kind of people are taking away from it, the thing that's really kind of living in the memory, is the manner of the defeat and the end of it, right? I mean, it's so comprehensive to concede 2-13 and to score 7. It's a really comprehensive defeat. The whole system, and whether you like it or lump it, and I'm not going to get into whether I like it or not, like it's whether I like it or not is kind of inconsequential, right? The whole system is contingent on not being behind in games, keeping it tight, and then picking off a point here and there when the opposition have to come at you. So to give it a further bit of context, in the last round of the group games against Fenna actually had a 5-point lead. They had a 2 goals to a 1-point lead, right? And Fenna maybe, I don't know how to say it, I'm not trying to be anyway derogatory towards Fenna, but Fenna in their naivety a little bit stayed attacking and stayed going at Tinryland, and therefore kind of handed the initiative back, because then Tinryland could hit him on the break. And Tinryland went in maybe a point down at half time. Was it 1-3 to maybe 2-1, something like that?
Yeah, it was tight anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, I said this to you, Kevin, so you'll know I'm not being wise. It's not in hindsight. I did say to you, I felt a goal was going to be crucial, that if there was maybe a point or 2 in it either way and a goal was scored, for Tinryland, that was going to be huge oxygen. It was going to be something to cling to. But sure, the reverse happened. I think was it 7-2 and then the goal. Is that correct?
7-2 and then the goal. So 1-8. It was 1-8-4 anyway. Yeah.
I'm not 100% sure, but basically, I think there was 3 or 4 points in it. We'll say, right?
So to give it a proper context, right? So Morrissey goes through to make it 8-4. It's a goal scoring opportunity, and literally from that kick out, we end up with 1-8 to 4 from there. Like,
I beg your pardon, but at 8-4, it's still doable. It's still right, but you do have to come out of your shell. You're 4 points down, and you have to come out of that kind of defensive structure. But then when you concede the goal, you now have a mountain to climb, because it's now a case of you really have to go all out attack. Pinching a point here and there isn't going to do it. And it just got away from there. And then, like, whether it's 5 points or 10 points or 15 points really is irrelevant. The point is, it's now unassailable. Now, if I can draw a comparison, James mentioned Clonmore and how effective Clonmore were. Look, they were outstanding. And I hope we get a chance to talk about Oisin Doyle, who's Oisin's the antidote to an awful lot of stuff there, Paul. I just think he is outstanding. But Tullow were able to fight their way back into the game and get it back to a 3-point game, because again, there's attacking instincts there, and they had to work so hard to do it. Now, did I ever think they were going to come back and win the game? Probably not, right, to be honest with you. But they were able to come out and attack it. It's kind of maybe so unnatural for Tinryland at the moment to go chasing like that, and then you're leaving yourself exposed, and it just spirals. Then you're in a tailspin. So it's obviously very disappointing. The better team won. There can be no arguments on that. And I suppose the manner of the defeat then makes it look, has there been any progress made, or, have we progressed at all since last year or the year before? I don't think it's as bad as that, but clearly there's going to have to be some kind of evolution of how we go about things, to say that, look, we have to have more than. I think Plan B can't do Plan A better.
Yeah, I get you. And look, Clarky, just from Éire Óg's point of view then, and maybe a word on Turlough, Tommy, Simon and the lads, a lot of pitchforks, a lot of timbers on fire last year, looking for them to make way even within their own club. They have answered that quite emphatically now, Clarky, haven't they?
Yeah, well, Tommy, Turlough and Simon, they beat the computer, what their game plan was really, really worked, no matter what Tinryland had planned. Yeah, like I think Turlough is absolutely fantastic football GA brain. He leaves no stone unturned. You had Tommy Wogan in there, and Tommy has been there and done it. He's fantastic as well. And Simon as well. Like Simon played at the highest level, and if you add them three together, I mean, they just come up with the ultimate probably game plan for to beat Tinryland in that final. Like people said, they were lucky to maybe win the semi-final against Rathvilly, but they hung in there against Rathvilly. They got the frees. Darrell O'Brien kicked 7 frees, and I mean, they had two guys like Sean Gannon and Mark Fury that were injured. I didn't even know to be back, and they got them through the game by probably minding them more so than anything, So I think absolutely fair play to Tommy Turlough and Simon and the backroom team, whatever. But they just got it right, fair play to them. But I do agree with Mick that once maybe the scoreline didn't reflect Tinryland, it does look worse than maybe it was, that sort of way. When Tinryland had to really come out and try chase the game, and as Mick said there, they're probably not used to chasing down that kind of a lead, and it definitely looked worse for Tinryland than what it was, but definitely fully deserved their victory,
Yeah, and Aero put up their highest score of the year, or certainly their equal score. They scored 312, I think, against Rangers. Is that correct? So obviously 312 is 15 scores. Yeah. So I was obviously leading into the final. You're trying to rationalise and think about where could a win come from and so on. Clearly, for Tinryland to win, we had to concede less than we did. There was never going to win a shootout. It was never going to be 2-15, 2-14. You know that kind of way? So therefore, then in the end of it, it looked so comprehensive. But at half time, everybody, there was nobody really on the edge of their seat at half time, right? Nobody was. I think anyone says the war is probably a bit of a football hipster, right? There's nobody, I think, really loving that at half time. But it was only 4-2, and Tinryland had some wides. I mean, Dermot Welch, who's a very talented player, had a wide. John Murphy, I think, had one. Paul Broderick, one of the finest free takers we've ever produced, if not the best, had a free. And that's maybe a little bit of pressure in the final and things. So I know Éire Óg did pull away, and so let's say from the 40th minute or so on. But up until that point, you can see that certainly it was tight and it was really competitive. But scores at crucial times. And I think a player that's going to come up in conversation later, I'd like to laud actually the contribution of Colm Hulton. I know Ross Dunphy deserves all the plaudits, and Darragh O'Brien, I think, has really come into his own the last couple of games. When the game was really there in the melting pot, I think Colm Hulton did a lot. He won a free immediately after half-time or close to it to make it 5-2. And he scored a really good score off his left, if not immediately, but certainly close after that. And I think he's really upped his game as an Éire Óg player to finish on a positive. From Tinryland perspective, if Tinryland had gotten into the lead and gotten a 1 or a 2 point advantage, maybe then the system's flaws, and there are flaws in it, but maybe then the system's flaws aren't as glaring. But I just do, obviously, look, victors write the history books, right? Fair enough, and Éire Óg are deserving winners. But I just think that there was a path to victory, but it was contingent on not going behind even 3 or 4 points. I think even a 3 or 4 point lead for Éire Óg really spelled curtains.
Yeah, plain and simple. And I think you're right with Hulton, and it's something, if you look at him throughout the year up close, his work rate, and I'd know the form of the boys now. They'd be saying, if you don't start doing it, I don't care. It's like fecking, was it Gilroy and Bernard Brogan? I don't care if you're scoring whatever. If you're not tackling and you're not getting on the team. And it's probably a similar enough situation, actually.
Well, look, there are 2 games. There's when you have the ball and when you don't. And Colm Hulton, since he's a kid, and we know him really well in the CBS and everything as well. Colm Hulton, since he's a chap with the ball, absolutely no questions, right? He's putting over balls with left and right. He's kicked really crucial scores for Éire Óg throughout the championship. And I think he's probably had a 7 or an 8 out of 10 game every game he's played. Other guys have been cold and then hot and so on. I think he's been consistent. But I think you're right. You're on to something, that his game without the ball has really come on an awful lot. And whether that's to his credit or management's credit or whatever, he definitely has upped his game in that regard.
The other thing, guys, that is worth commenting, and look, I appreciate we want to spend most of our time talking about football, but I suppose for me what stood out for a variety of different reasons was a variety of different emotions at full time. And look, we know that we're going to have happiness and sadness. That's the typical fundamentals of how county finals go. A team wins, a team loses. But yesterday there wasn't just happiness and sadness. There was frustration. There was emotion in the sense that of meaning to people's families that has stuff going on. Anger. There was an awful lot of stuff. I never saw it like it actually in the 60 seconds after the full time whistle. A few things happened that we probably wouldn't like to be talking about or giving too much airtime to, but they did happen. But we're not privy to everything that's gone on behind the scenes over the past few months. So therefore, I don't feel comfortable enough in a position to give it much airtime. But all I can say is that there was a little bit of everything going on after the game, and possibly what we have, I suppose, been slightly informed of or slightly have information on in terms of what happened behind the scenes over the past few months did look like it maybe came to fruition a little bit at full time. But then there was some beautiful moments, which is what I would like to focus on if we could, and that was Mark Fury. Like, that interview for me, when you look at this guy, 6 foot plus, absolutely built like a tank, and what that meant to him, you could see it in his face, tears streaming down his eyes. And I mean, the gladiator look with the tooth missing and everything, you just couldn't look and ask for better to sum up what a county final win means. And guys, I don't know about G, but for me, that's what it's all about, plain and simple. If we've any takers on that one.
I know Mark a long time, since he's a child. As disappointed as you'd be, like, there's no two ways about disappointed as you'd be to lose the final. You want to have a heart of stone not to feel a bit of emotion there when you're watching Mark, and he's so emotive in what he's saying. And those two chaps have had a lot on their plate there lately, and to come back and perform in the final with an injury. I thought Johnny was very good in the goal as well. And I think there's a few lads there that are real class acts, the like the Furies, Jordan Morrissey. There's a few lads there, and look, you just have to admire them. It'd be easier if you could hate them. It'd be easier if you could go, look, to hell with those lads. But there's some great chaps there in that. And there's great lads involved in all these places, right? And when you're out there and when the match is on, you want to be going hell for leather and doing whatever you can to win. But then when it's over, it is important to shake hands, acknowledge, and say, look, more power to you, best of luck. And to be playing the Laois champions, I'm sure everybody will be getting behind them.
Yeah. And Paul Byrne, I know I haven't given you much airtime so far, but I also know that you were probably knee-deep in bowlings at the time of the county final being played yesterday. So what we can bring you in on, I suppose, is what the landscape looks like from a Leinster point of view with Éire Óg now. Because, I'll be honest with you, in my mind, I was chalking Port Arlington down as Laois senior football champions. I was saying, Jesus, Éire Óg could have it all to do against Port Arlington. But Port Arlington haven't even made the Laois senior football final. Joseph saw them off yesterday, Paul, and now Joseph's take on Port Laois in the final. And when either of those two teams come to Netwatch Cullen Park on what I think is Saturday the 21st of October under lights, I don't think that's going to be an easy game to call. I would say Éire Óg have a great chance there. Is that something you go along with, P?
Absolutely. I think, let's be honest about it. And then just getting back to the interviews with the guys there, I think Dermot Root gave an interview as well, somewhere I've seen on the platforms as well, and was hugely emotional. And I know Dermot, and in fairness, it's to some degree for sort of people like myself, like a drought in Éire Óg is only 2 or 3 years, and yet there's that emotion, and usually that emotion is held for people who haven't won it in 15, 20 years. So it's an amazing mindset. And it's a mindset, I think, that will serve them well against the Laois champions. You'd have to say to yourself, I suppose, if the first game at home, you'd fancy them, I'd say, against either Joseph's or Port Laois. I know, obviously, if it's Port Laois, they come with a bit of history. Joseph's maybe not so much, but again, it's probably a tough one to call. But home advantage under lights on the 21st, you'd have to say Éire Óg are never satisfied with just winning a county final.
And what they do have is I don't really care too much for what you bring to the table or what anyone brings to the table or what, like, we are Eire and we know what we're capable of, and that is ingrained in them. You know, for years upon years, it's hard to beat that mentality, plain and simple. So look, I'm conscious that we spent, and in fairness, the right amount of time on the senior championship final. There's probably a lot more we could talk about on it as well. Is there any last thoughts before we do go to intermediate, guys, from anyone? You all good? All good. Okay, so we will rock on to intermediate. Now, I have to sum this up as possibly the greatest start to a county final that I've seen from a football team for a long, long time. And Clonmore just hit the ground running. They were sublime. Clarky, actually, I should say commiserations to you as well, actually. I never thought of that.
Yeah,
I
you're okay.
you with O'Loughlin for so long. But I suppose even from your point of view, you can't have been anything but impressed, I guess, with what Clonmore did.
Yeah, well, listen, when we talk about starts to the county finals, like, I mean, that's just a dream start. But I just want to say it's a long, long time since I've seen 15 guys so comfortable on the ball. From your corner back to your corner forward, the kick pass and the foot pass and the hand passing was just on the button every time. And, you know, I think Tullow, they actually played a different game. I think they changed their tactics when they got to the quarter-final stage, and they started to bring people back. Now, they had people back, but it's one thing having people back. But, I mean, the Clonmore guys, they were shooting every time they shot. There was no, I'm not saying there was no pressure on, but there wasn't that much pressure on for the amount of people that Tullow had back. But absolutely crazy scores from Clonmore. I happened to be sitting beside the PRO from Clonmore. I don't know what the lady's name is, but I nearly got scalded 3 or 4 times by a cup of tea, I'd say, because even she didn't imagine that sort of a start. And she was trying to type in on the Twitter, the Clonmore Twitter, as quickly as they were going over the bar, you know. So I think it was the score. Was it 1-7 to 10 to no score after 15 minutes?
Yeah, 1-6 or 1-7, I think. Yeah.
So absolutely dream start, but I tell you what, there's some footballers on that Clonmore team, and wasn't it just great to see the bomb squad coming on at the end? You know, I mean, like Colin Murphy there, great, like Jesus, fantastic servants to Clonmore. You know, it was fantastic to see them all. Thoroughly deserved their win. As Mick said, fair play to Tullow. I mean, they came back within 3 points and they came roaring back, like, you know, and that showed character. I think the year longer in intermediate will do Tullow the world of good. Not easy to have intermediate next year, of course, but I think Clonmore are really, really well equipped to go up to senior level right now. And I think they really put together an amazing management team. As I said, they must have been doing football drills for the last 6, 7, 8 months, and they must have been doing them at speed. But by God, that was some start to a county final, and fair play to them. They kept it going, you know, and fair play to Tullow for coming back into it. I mean, it was a very enjoyable game. At no stage did I think Clonmore was going to lose it, but credit to Clonmore. I mean, they have a guy, Rob Bulmer playing half forward, absolutely fantastic. He just kicks the ball. There's no curl in it, and it goes high and it's accurate. And then we have Oisin Doyle in full forward. Oh my God, what a starlet, like, you know. Definitely for me, intermediate footballer of the year, but fantastic, absolutely fantastic. Well done to Clonmore, and definitely commiserations to Tullow, but they'll come back strong again, you know. And I think the extra year in intermediate, as difficult as it is, and that I think it'll do Tullow the world of good. I think Clonmore are ready to go up senior now.
Okay, well, Fish, I'll bring you in on this because lots of positive vibes and lots of love for Clonmore. Talk us through what was kind of unfolding in your eyes, and was there any nervous moments, maybe in particular around 43 minutes perhaps, when a kick out goes Skioways and it could have been back to a point or two?
I suppose a bit like what the guys are saying, like the start, 1-6, 1-7 is just obviously amazing. To be honest, I was somewhat disappointed at halftime because that 1-7 probably could have been 1-10, 1-11. A couple probably went astray, and people were probably saying you're getting a bit greedy there. But that was the kind of conversation that we were having. And there's always that fear that, because teams are going to get their 10 minutes or whatever it is. But I suppose that interesting piece there in terms of what happened in terms of the goal chance, that would have brought Tulla back within a point, or I think a point, and potentially get momentum. And you'd be probably normally concerned about what might happen there. But I just think, the work rate from the Clonmore lads, the crispness of the pass and the vision, they saved it all for the final. There's no question about that. It was by far their most complete performance. And I think, obviously there's loads of names been throughout there, and you look at, we're talking about guys been, say, the antidote to maybe negative football. And look at, I think, we were having a bit of a laugh yesterday, and it's now become Oisín Clifford because it was that sort of special performance, let's say, and some of the things that he was doing were very special. But that's not to take away from everybody else. I think the work rate was just amazing, and there's a unity about them. There's an absolute unity about them. A guy makes a mistake, there's no big deal. There's no, there's no issues about it, and they get on with it. And then, you have a couple of guys coming off the line who probably added a bit of experience to it. In some cases, probably slowed it down a bit and done all the right things and made the right options. But look I don't think we've seen probably a Clonmore team playing that well. Certainly not in a final, because we had lost a couple for many years. Many years.
Mm-hmm. Mick, you're very well placed to comment on both of these clubs, I think, because obviously, your involvement with Clonmore at minor level going back 4 or 5 years ago, maybe a little bit longer, when they got to a county final against Fenna, that gives you a fair platform, as does your time with St. Patrick's. So, I mean, you were particularly impressed, like the rest of us, with Clonmore and what they've done, not just this year, but over the past number of years.
Yeah, just I want to be honest. I've not egg on my face, but I want to be fess up. I gave Tullow a really good chance in the final because I just thought to myself, like, look, listen, Clonmore can't get a start as good again as they did 1-3 to no score. And I said, listen, St. Patrick's, now we're going to be really aware of that and they'll shore things up. And, I just thought, and I even thought as well, it's a real challenge to go beat the same team again. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's definitely a psychological effort there required, because we've already beaten this team. If to go beat them again, it's tough. Now, all that said, like, I am delighted for Clonmore, and I think they're a model for how you respond to adversity. They went down in very, very tough circumstances. I was over watching that game. It was in Tullow, actually, where they played Rogue in what was a de facto quarter-final or relegation game. Now, they lost the game by a point, Fisher, is that correct? Lost that game by a point?
Yeah, lost by a point, and it was the 1 year that there wasn't a relegation final.
Yes, because there was 2 teams going down because of previous with COVID. So there was no even, there was straight through the trapdoor. There was no safety net of even a relegation final. Now, Rogue went on and won the championship. Talk about a sliding doors moment there, right? Rogue went and won the intermediate championship, and Clonmore find themselves in Junior A. And I think the response as a club, by all means, laud the management, and by all means, credit the players. And I might mention 1 or 2 in a second. But you have to credit the club. They've won Junior C since. They've won Junior A since. They had a great run in Leinster. They've now won intermediate and really have shown themselves to be the cream of the crop. Like, I mean, they were the team of the championship in the grade. And like, you would give them every chance of going on and competing very well at senior. The 2 players, well, there's several players I'd like to mention. Jay Kiki came in as a late replacement there and played really well until he came out. Luke Connolly is a guy that, despite being a young fella, he's a young man, but he plays like an older fella. He plays like a veteran. And he gave an interview after the game, and I just thought, like, there's a really self-possessed, sensible, composed young man. But again, I'm not surprised by it. But, like, really, Oisín Doyle, like the Oisín Clifford, and I don't want to not hyperbole, or I don't want to heap pressure onto him, but he's got it all. He's got pace. He's strong to win his own ball. He has a delicious solo, is how I would describe it. The ball is gone from hand to foot and back in a flash, right? You can't dispossess him. He thinks quickly. If I was a criticism of him, I might say he could be a little bit more selfish. He probably could cap a couple more over himself, but he's just as happy to bring others into it. And the other thing I want to say on it is, I think we have a propensity in Carlow to maybe play our really top-class players in around the middle, in around the diamond, centre back, centre forward, middle of the field, etc. He is Clonmore's star man, and he's close to the goal, and you just have to deal with that. And he was up against a very good player in Rob Gann. He is tough, He's aggressive. He'll give you everything that's going. But like Oisin Doyle, just really a superb performance. And if he's not in on the senior inter-county panel this year, I'm a monkey's uncle.
Well put, in fairness. The standout thing in that 20-minute period from Clonmore's point of view was that they seem to have done a lot of work on both a short and long kick out. Now, Tullow didn't go short, but do you know, like, how do I describe it? When Oisin is like that and he's leaving that little bit of space, he's trying to actually maybe manufacture a situation. Yeah, where McGill goes to the corner back and then they can get 3 or 4 bodies over. What's that press called? There's a name for that in soccer. It's not the Gagan press, is it? I don't know what it is. But basically, you give it to the corner back and next thing there's several players over swarming them. And that's that. So I think McGill recognised that and didn't want to go short or whatever. So everything that went, it didn't matter what way it was coming out, lads. Clonmore were dogged, determined, and there's so much to be said for it. Yes, people talk about breaks, but then there's the whole thing of being hungry to get onto the break, and they just wanted everything in that first 20-minute period, like, didn't they?
Yeah, and again, like there's other players that I think. Sorry, no, I don't want to hog the thing on Paul, who knows these lads better than me. But Rory Maguire has really come of age this year. Like, he's owner of the most spectacular mullet in GAA, I'm sure, right? But besides that, like, he gave a really assured performance. Billy Lawler, another fella, like, he is hardy. Did he score 1-1? Did Billy get 1-1?
I thought he got the goal, but was Matt Cullen, I think, Fish, was it?
Was it Matt?
Yeah, Matt Cullen got the goal, yeah.
Like, we haven't even mentioned Matt Cullen. There's another young fella,
actually.
Centre back, right? And he's manning that position there. And, like, I'm sure his father, Phil, is a serious customer himself on the line there. Like, he's really now starting to fulfill promise, I think. Look, they really ought to be thrilled with it. And as I say, I'm delighted for the like of James Doyle, chairman there and all as well. That can't have been easy going down and dealing with that. And you talk about pressure in places like Rogue and so on. I don't know how long it was since Clonmore were junior, Fisher, 70 years or something. Was it something outrageously long?
I suppose at the beginning, everybody was junior back in the 50s. I suppose it was probably as far back as that, you know.
But certainly it had been a long time.
Fish?
Sorry, it had been a long time since Clonmore hadn't been intermediate or senior, and I just think
absolutely.
I think the response as a club has just been like St. Bridget's are winning. You know, it appears to be on a crest of a wave there, and more power to them.
And look, to be fair, I'd love to take that point. It is at the end of the day all this credit, you know, for today and yesterday and whatever else, people reflecting and looking at the match and stuff. All the credit has to go to the guys that went out on the pitch. There's no question about that. But certainly as a club, I think, you know, the club itself could have decided to go one way or the other way, and luckily enough that they decided to go this particular route. And I think there was no kind of stone left unturned really in terms of everything that was being done. You know, players are looked after, everyone is looked after. There's a buzz about the place. There has been a buzz about the place since last year. And I think, you know, all of that contributes on a given day. And it just all came together. It was just the whole mix. It just came together. So certainly huge credit to a lot of people that are doing things there that maybe, you know, might go unnoticed.
Clarky, can I just bring in on one thing from a St. Patrick's point of view, just to make sure we're calling this fairly accurately. Now, like, I'm looking down at Jack Kennedy's score and tally, and he got 6 frees, and people might be saying, well, Clonmore did a great job, they kept them scoreless. The amount of times he gets fouled for frees that he puts over himself is unbelievable. And I do have a bit of crack sometimes about maybe a Horse Lawler or an Alfie Corker in hurling and how they're able to manufacture a free, and just in terms of how they come out with a ball, they're already leaning back sort of a thing. But Jack, 9 times out of 10, is justifiably fouled, and 9 times out of 10, he puts balls over the bar from those frees. I think it's remiss to not mention it, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And Mick, you all know from training Tullow, Jack Kennedy, even better than I do, but his work rate, even in the final, was fantastic, you know. I think, as Mick will tell you, his speed over 15, 20 yards is phenomenal. And when he takes off, it's very hard to stop him, bar you foul him. Now, in fairness to Jack, he's usually hovering around the half-forward line, and if you're moving to anywhere in around there, if you get fouled, he's a very good free taker as well. I listen. I had my team of the year. He was unlucky probably not to make it because, I mean, he was the star for Tullow this year and getting to the final, you know, and he had a great final. Like, in fairness to him, he did everything he could to drag Tullow back up the pitch and drag Tullow into it. So Jack Lindy is fantastic, absolutely fantastic. And I think when he was in the county a few years ago, he just didn't get the look in that he should have got. I think he should have got a lot more time on the pitch, but he has kept his form going for the club, and he's one of the main reasons that Tullow was in the county final. You know,
was he the first person to score a point in inter-county championship football on a Friday night? I think he holds that distinction.
Awesome.
Yeah, against Laois in 2013. But yeah, he's fantastic bit of stuff, and like a fine wine, getting better with age, as the fella said. So I'll probably go to the Junior B next, guys, before I come back to the Junior A, if that's okay, because I probably should have done it in that order anyway. And the great story, I suppose, that is Aska going up to Junior A. They were favourites to do it, but I mean, there was nobody going to hand it to them, and it was a very entertaining game of football, I felt. Mick, I know you got in for. Were you in for most of this one, or did you get in for all of it?
All of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would it be wrong of me to suggest that in terms of entertainment value is as good as definitely the two on the Saturday anyway, and certainly better than the senior one?
Yeah, and like obviously we've said this before when we were talking. What you get when you go down the grades a little bit, and it's not, there's no sense of looking down your nose or anything like that. But what you get is you get more entertainment value, because sure, it isn't as structured, and there are more turnovers and there are more mistakes and kind of thrills and spills, and there was loads of that in this game. Like a Rogue looked to start great, and you had good performances there over Wise heads, Gary Powell and Derek Hayden. Liam Ryan was really chipping in. He was a real problem there at centre forward. But like, to the credit of Aska there as well, I mean, the two Dohertys inside are fierce handfuls, Jamie and Ben Doherty there inside. They had withdrawn Jack Phelan a little bit. That's Jack's forte as a footballer, I would say. He's competitive and he's lively, and he'll be buzzing around the place. But like, probably the guy that really stood out over the whole game is John Pirry. Like, I mean, his athleticism is just on a different level altogether there. Like, it really stood out, you know. Look, it got a little bit tetchy late on. Like, there was obviously cards and things like that. I'm not going to get into it. These things happen, but definitely then, like, just lay it on. I think the athleticism in particular of John Pirry really had such a huge impact. Conor O'Brien kicked over a couple of crucial frees at crucial stages as well, and he's on the go with Aska a long time now as well, even though he's not old by any means. It's also great to see a couple of really young guys, lads that I know well, Mark O'Brien and Andrew Vint, they're coming in for Aska. And what's pleasing, I'd say really pleasing for Aska, is that those lads are homegrown. Those lads are nurtured up along the same as Pirry, etc. So there's probably a real sense of accomplishment there in that regard. Final thing I'll say on it as well is that, like, obviously you have to go out and win it, right? No one is going to hand it to you, and you don't just deserve it because of nostalgia or goodwill. But like, it is obviously a bigger thing for Aska to climb a grade than it is for Éire Óg. You know, Éire Óg have such an embarrassment of riches there with footballers. They have teams at senior, intermediate, and junior B here for the overall good, if you want to put it like that. And that's of no consolation to Andy Ellis and the rest of the Éire Óg crowd. But it probably is a better thing then that Aska are up, and it'll keep them enthused and keep them going, you know.
Yeah, for sure. 210 out of 213 from play was an interesting statistic. 4 points for Jamie Durley from play, 3 points from play for Ben Durley. As I said, Perry with 1-1. The impact off the bench as well, Dermot Long and James Ingram.
The Ingram, yeah, that was a very good score the Ingram chap got, without a doubt. That was he really enjoyed it. Jeez, he lapped that up. He really celebrated that one. But no, the two Dohertys in particular, like, they're talented footballers. You know, they have football. So yeah, look, overall, I suppose I am happy for Aska that Aska did get up out of there. And you know what's noteworthy as well? Maybe, I don't know who copped it, or I didn't notice, but did you see who was down as trainer for Aska? Did you cop that one?
Lauren Dwyer, yeah.
Lauren Dwyer. And like in a weekend with Congress there, we were talking about 40% representation voted that to have gender balance on committees and that kind of stuff in GA, and the direction of travel is that we are all going to come under one association. Marion Hayden, Pamela Hayden, all these kind of things. I think it's great there then to see Lauren Dwyer is in training the adult top team in the club there in Asca. I just thought that was noteworthy. Fair play to her.
Yeah, and a great family thing, of course. John,
Of course.
manager, and the brother, joint captain
Absolutely.
there in the middle
John
of the
in
field.
the middle of the field, yeah.
Yeah, really, really cool. And Ascot, last thing on them, I think 1-3 in the closing 5 minutes. Now that's inclusive, obviously, of injury time I'm talking about. All that from play. So it goes back to the legs, I suppose. And at that stage, Éire Óg did go down to 13. Sure, we'll put it on record. They lost Eric Hayden and Gary Powell to red cards. A player of note for Éire Óg, Liam Ryan was fantastic. He got 2-2 from play. And really, really impressed with him. He had loads of football. And again, it comes back to, as you say, that embarrassment of riches. Like, how many intermediate teams would he get on? He possibly might get on a senior team or two. Do you know what I mean?
Liam is he's very athletic. He's very competitive guy. He really does, like, he'll have a Route 1 mentality. He kicked a few lovely scores, as you mentioned there as well. Did he score? Was it a penalty? He got one. Was it a penalty? Was one? Is that right?
Yeah, 2-1 from play, I think it was actually. Actually, that reminds me. I think I put down 2-2 from play in the report, but sure, fake it. We'll sort that.
Yeah, but no, look, Liam is no surprise to me now. I know him well. He's a very good footballer. Very good footballer. Nice to see two brothers in the middle of the field there, the two Murphys as well. Do you know? And you'd be looking at them going, who's who? The only way to tell them apart really is that Shane's that little bit taller than Dermot. Do you know? Other than that, so it's great to see lads soldiering there, and that family affair thing is nice as well. You know.
Yeah, of course. So back we go to Junior A now, and the story that is, I suppose, St. Mullins and their is that called a three-peat? Is that what the cool kids call it? A three-peat or something like that?
Chicago Bulls.
Yeah. They're gone from Junior C to intermediate in the space of a couple of years, which is phenomenal stuff. I suppose, you could say the Junior C one wouldn't have been a massive surprise. The Junior B one they had to work for, but this definitely is one that they were put to the pin in the collar for, or so we thought. Like, am I wrong to suggest that even though it's a 1 point win, it's quite a convincing one, James? Because if you look at this particular statistic, 13 wides, 3 drops short, 2 wides on the other side, and it wasn't that Fighting Cocks were overly clinical or anything like that. They just weren't able to feed the guys inside. They couldn't get their hands on the ball for so much of the game. So would it be wrong to suggest that was the most convincing 1 point win that you might see in a final, lads?
Yeah, I think so, because St. Mullins also missed 2 great goal chances in the second half. I think they got 2 points from it, but there were 2 really, really good goal chances. It kept the Fighting Cocks in the game, and fair play to the Cocks. I mean, there was awful lot of things that didn't go right for the Fighting Cocks. I'd say it was probably one of the worst performances of the championship, and they came out like losing by a point. But fair play, lads. I have to say, James Dial, get him a size 5 football and let him on that county team, because he is phenomenal. He's a big, strong man that can kick a great free as well,
For sure, lad. And Mick, could I ask you, if you were involved with the Carlow Senior setup, or Fish, you can come in on this as well, would there be a couple of those guys genuinely that you'd be looking at to call in? I know it's a fantasy, right? Because they're not going to. Hurling is number 1. But is there a few, and if so, who would they be?
Paul?
Well, I think just a sort of, obviously it's probably is a fantasy, but if there were, I would say there's probably 2 or 3, certainly, as James has said, James Dial. Sure, you could look at probably any of the captains to be well able to apply themselves to. Do you know what I mean? So there is a couple lads there. There were some really good performances on the St. Mullins side. Very athletic, naturally enough. Usually, if a team is sort of getting the better of you, you expect at some stage that they'll tire. They're never going to tire. They could be still playing there. It wouldn't make an ounce of difference. So, yeah, I suppose though, in terms of the 1 point win being a convincing win, I suppose it was, because you've kicked 13 wides and 8 of those were in the first half. I was doing commentary on that one, and it was a hell of a lot of wides. And you're looking saying, will they rue this? They possibly very nearly did rue it, which would say to yourself, well, then it probably wasn't that convincing in the wind up. The only thing I will say is, I suppose from a Fighting Cocks point of view, I think they were a little bit shell shocked as well by the start that St. Mullins had. St. Mullins just looked to be hitting them very, very quickly. And we were kind of looking at it and saying, well, what will it take? What will it take for the Cox to get back into it? You know, not even a score, even a big hit will do it. Do you know what I mean? Get the crowd. There was a huge contingent there from the Fighting Cocks support. And I thought they did manage to do that. They did manage to start to just, you know, play with a bit more intensity. I thought Owen O'Byrne was very, very good for them. I thought he gave everything. He took the hits. He was the one that was sort of rising them. I thought he was very, very good. I thought Alan Quigley worked, but as you said earlier on, I think somebody said he couldn't get the ball in. He covered a massive amount of ground. But I kind of was a little bit wondering as well, you know, which team would this mean the most to? And I think maybe to take up the earlier point in terms of Aska and maybe Aero's third team, I think this would have meant a hell of a lot more to the Fighting Cocks than it has done to St. Mullins. Obviously, they're first and foremost a hurling club, but for the split season, you know, would there be a different scenario there? There probably would be. And I had huge sympathy for the Fighting Cocks that they didn't just get a draw at least out of it.
Fair point. And James, just in relation to the Cox there as well, and I don't know if any of you guys are privy to the information or whatever, or the reasoning why. Now, I assume Matty Dowling was probably maybe an ageist sort of thing why he was withdrawn. But Gary Nolan in particular making way in 43 minutes was an interesting one, James.
It was. I actually thought he was playing very well centre back, and he was on the day. There was a lot of spill balls from the Fighting Cocks players. They weren't able to hold on to it, but Gary was able to hold on to it, take a tackle, travel an extra 4 yards, give a good hand pass, you know. And I was it was the two changes. I was very, very surprised that Matty Down was having a great game. I know he was probably tiring a little bit, but geez, I would have stuck him in corner forward or something. Just him staying around the square. He's very, very dangerous, very good at frees. Two great players, two great servants to the Fighting Cocks. And just to take up Paul's point, listen, I was good for the Fighting Cocks as well, because I know what it means to the people out there. They're a fantastic community. Their juvenile structure is really, really starting to kick off over there as well. And but you know, they'll come back and give it another go. I think they have a very good management team. And I think they will come back again, possibly stronger next year for the experience. But I think on the day, there was too many things that went wrong for the Fighting Cocks to possibly win that game. Even though Danny lost by his point, as Paul said, they were still well in the game. But I think they'll come back strong again, you know, because I think the management team will have a better idea again of the players, and it's only their first year, you know, and they can get more structures in place, and the players obviously trust the management team. So I have no doubt that they'll be back again, you know. And as we all know, lads, junior is a minefield to get out of, you know. Look at Loughlin Bridge last year. We all thought, you know, they'd be nearly nailed on to get to the final at least this year again, you know.
Yeah, the 2-6 out of Fighting Cocks 2-7 came between minute 19 and minute 38. Now, obviously, there's injury time added in there as well. That's when they had their spell, I guess, either side of half time. Actually, sorry, I should say 40 minutes, because Owen O'Byrne kicked a wonder score as well. That was a really, really good score from Owen O'Byrne when he bombed forward. Just to go back on the changes, because they were a big talking point, in fairness. Like, could you have made a case, Mick, perhaps now, for keeping Gary and Matty on the field, particularly, I suppose, well, not particularly either of them, but Matty with high energy, not having high energy, I should say. Like, the game he plays doesn't involve high energy. That's the point I was going to make. You're in around the area there. The ball comes in. We've seen it for the goal. Could you have made the case of having O'Brien there with him? Sean O'Brien, of course, we're talking about. And Matty still beside him, and maybe bringing in Captain Emmett Moore alongside Gary Nolan? Or, like, did it have to be either or, is what I'm saying?
I look, we're all being wise after the event. In the middle of games, you're under pressure, and maybe it's like down on the line, people are seeing different things. What I will say is that like Tony Bulger and Morris Brown, like, they're very clued in guys. Obviously, That's what they felt the thing to do. However, I see your point. Gary Nolan, Gary was a minor in 07 that went to the Leinster final and so on. Like, he's a very, very composed, very sensible sort of a player. And I know what you're saying, that maybe you're looking for composure. I can only assume they were looking at a bit of energy. That's what I can just guess, that maybe they felt that's what they needed. And sure, in hindsight now, especially a game you lose by a single score, you examine everything with a fine-tooth comb. The thing I want to talk about in relation to it, Paul makes a great point there. He's absolutely spot on. In the bigger picture type thing, which again doesn't matter to St. Mullins, like it's, but in the bigger picture, like, are St. Mullins going to have a team in Division 2 of the league, you know, next spring? I don't know. I'd hold judgment on that one. The other thing is, I think St. Mullins are a kind of a fascinating, nearly like an experiment, right, on the relative contribution of physical, technical, tactical, and psychological components to a performance. So, without going too boring on it here now, we'll all accept that you need to be in good physical shape to be at your best. We accept that skills, James mentioned the skills of Clonmore there were really outstanding. You need to be tactically right, and sometimes we overdo that in GAA. We maybe overcomplicate things. I know people think some teams are doing that. And then psychologically, well, if you're Mouse Kavanagh getting into the car to drive up 45 minutes to go play a match, right? And I know it is, as Paul said, it might not be as big a deal for them as it would have been to the Cox. So he's in great shape. He's a winner, right? He's not coming up to make up numbers in anything he does. I'm just using him as an example. So therefore, any technical issues that he doesn't practice with a size 5 very much, or tactically, they're the most straightforward tactical team in the championship, bar none, I would say. I would say they were the least structured of any team in the championship, St. Mullins. But if you have what they have, like serious winning mentality, if St. Mullins are pulling into the car park to go tug out and go into the county grounds, they're going to win, right? That's what's in their head. Big ball, small ball. Plus, like the physicality. James Doyle, again, just as an example, like there's more. Paddy O'Shea is as hard as the road, right? And he'd stay going till tomorrow night if you asked him, right? So when they have those things, like they will be very hard beaten if they do stay at it. But Paul's point's an interesting one. If it starts to impact hurling, be a very short conversation.
Yeah, for sure. And Paul, Mick has mentioned Marty Kavanagh, who I wanted to give a big mention to. And a lot of the time, you know, a mouse by his own admission will get a lot of plaudits in hurling terms when other guys have done a lot of good work. But this final for me, it was to pick out one player and an all-round influence on a game. I thought he was fantastic. Not just for being Mouse Kavanagh or whatever, for want of a better way of putting it, but he broke up play. He got on loose ball, he drove forward, but most importantly, I think he was in direct competition with Liam Shepherd for most of the game, and I'm up for correction on that. But I think he won that battle, which was a big battle to win. Liam Shepherd's influence in the last couple of games has been massive, and I just thought it would be remiss of us to not mention him. Did he stand out for you, P?
Yeah, he did. Like an awful lot of ball went through his hands. There's absolutely no question about it. And, you know, you bring back in all the other skills that, you know, he brings to the thing. You know, he knows when to slow it down. He knows when to, you know, let the ball on. All of those things that he's probably bringing from the small ball game. There's no question about that. Interesting enough, I actually thought Liam Shepherd had some really, really good periods in the game. It was kind of, you were kind of looking at it and you were saying, well, look at he's opposite, you know, Marty in the sense. But Liam Shepherd actually played well for large periods as well. Both of them did. So they were kind of dropping off each other to some degree.
He made a great goal chance, Paul. Sorry,
absolutely.
He made a brilliant
No, you're right.
chance
Absolutely, yeah.
To develop James's point about the throw-in. He made a brilliant effort there. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah.
No, you're right.
No, you're right. You're right. So, but look at, you know what you're getting at Marty Kavanagh. There's no question about that. And I think all the attributes that Mick referenced certainly was very good. I suppose to take the point going back in relation, just for a second, in relation to maybe the substitutions, I would share the view that I thought Gary Nolan was doing really well, to be quite honest. But to take Mick's point there, people make decisions on the line, and we're not privy to whether that is carrying a bit of an injury or, you know, he's gassed out or whatever the hell it might be. So those things are made, and they're made for the right reason, and we're not here to question any of that. But I suppose the one interesting thing I'd say in relation to Matty Dowling is Matty played out further from goals than maybe he normally would do.
Mm-hmm.
And perhaps that was a little bit more, testing on the legs than maybe in closer to goal. That's the only thing I could possibly say in relation to his one. And then of course, then you had Sean O'Brien coming in for him. Interestingly enough, actually, maybe Sean struggled with the first ball that went into him, but one did stick, and he put in a great pass inside, and there was a great score kicked off it. It was probably Alan Quigley, I think, that might have got a point at that stage. But certainly, I even though we look at I naturally no ties to either club, I was somewhat disappointed for the Fighting Cocks, I have to say.
Mm-hmm.
Just to say, Kevin, maybe before on James's point about the future for the Cocks, right? Aaron Dowling is a very good footballer, a chip off the old block. He's Matty's son. He's a very talented player. He's a guy that's maybe in the Oisin Doyle mold. He's crafty, he's clever, well able to kick a score. And I think he's a guy that's coming up. And another fella that I was very impressed with was Glenn O'Rourke. Was it Glenn O'Rourke at wing forward? Wearing number 12. He had a real sort of a rugby sidestep. He kind of he cut in off it. But he was dynamic now. I like the look of him, and he's another one for the future. So, and St. Martin's factory is going very well there. So I think they'll be all right. I think there's players coming there.
Yeah, I think Glenn up to the final had probably chipped in with a goal in most games.
Yeah.
And I think it was interesting because going into I met a lad on the way into the match and was kind of talking about what might be needed, and I felt that if the Fighting Cocks got 2 goals, they'd probably win it. They did get 2 goals, and they didn't win it, but they went very close. If you take away, perhaps that they didn't get quite as much possession as or as much chances maybe as say Mullins. But on the flip side, you'd have to say, in terms of the percentage return, it was probably a hell of a lot higher.
Yeah. Yep. Actually, you just reminded me of something there, lads, because I was to give a shout out to the under 17A semi-finals this evening, and I just have some results here. So St. Martin's beat Grange 114 to 9 points, and Aerogue 14 points, Palatine 1-8. Now, just on the St. Martin's Grange one in particular, that's very heartening to see. Mick, you're the best placed man to talk about this, actually, given your status as inter-county manager this year at that grade. So do you want to just give us a bit of context on that, if you wouldn't mind, please?
Yeah, well, I suppose it's kind of novel pairing there when you have Grange and St. Martin's there in a semi-final.
I said St. Bridges, sorry, St. Martin's, yeah.
Yeah, so look, that's great to see, obviously. I know on the night there, St. Martin's ran out reasonably comfortable winners on that end, but from Grange, and I mentioned this on a previous podcast with you, there are some very good players in Grange that will be coming up, and I was saying to you that if the like of the elder guys in Grange can hang on and help bed those guys in. But there's 2 boroughs there. Aidan, who was on the team, and his younger brother, who's underage again next year. Aidan was on the minors this year. Tom Hughes, as we mentioned. Harry Nolan, as we mentioned, for Grange. The exciting players then on the St. Martin side. Marty Carroll was a dual player this year. Now, Marty concentrated on the hurling in the end of his kind of bit of an injury and so on. He's minor again next year. There's Rory McCaffrey there, a younger brother of Fionn. There's Aaron Dowling, who I mentioned earlier there as well. There's a Dylan Ruan, a good Cunningham chap in the goal. There's a guy that's going to be a huge help to Kilbride, Daniel Bulger. Now, again, I think Kilbride are going to need him quicker than maybe other clubs might be able to bed lads in. But he's a fierce competitive chap. He got an injury, very unfortunate injury in our first challenge game this year. And he would have been a certain dual starter, hurlers and footballers for minor this year. So there's the future is bright in both those places, I think, and credit to the coaches that are doing great work there. As regards Palatine and Aerogue, to be honest with you, I'm slightly surprised at that. Palatine, to me, I thought were going to be, if not hot favourites. They look very, very strong to me, and they have lots of good players there. Owen McMahon in charge of them, and I mean they have lots of really good players. I think a fellow who was significantly missing there was his name escapes me. I'll come back to me in a second. In the middle of the field, big strong lump of guy. Can't think of it on my head here now, but they have Jack Keating still underage. They have a couple of good buggy chaps there as well. They have Ewan Breen. So there's lots of good players in both those. But Éireog, typical Éireog, lots of people may be saying that this wasn't vintage for them and everything, and there they are in a minor A final again, you know. And they have Paul Shaw, Jamie Coakley, Owen Myers. They have lots and lots of good players there coming through, as they always do, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, another result I just see in there is the Division 2A playoff.
Mark Mulhall, sorry, Mark's first name escaped me for a second.
Always
Mark
happens,
was missing
doesn't
with
it?
an injury. Does.
It's always the same. Michael Davitt 7 points, Honest Rangers 6 points. And again, just before we go to teams of the year, I also want to mention a couple of things. So well done once more to Bennekerry, Tinryland, who are the senior ladies champions, and to St. Bridges, who are the intermediate ladies champions. And of course, this weekend in Netwatch Cullen Park on Sunday, you have the Camogie finals. Junior final is Burn Rangers and Michael, I believe, and the senior final after that then is Michael and Nailbreed. Should be 2 cracking games indeed, so check out Carlo Camogie's social channels for that. So, teams of the year, you're pleading the 5th one on this fish, yeah?
Yeah, it's only because I suppose I haven't seen a lot of the early games in the championship, and I always find with teams of the year, and we're all guilty of it, you know, we kind of heavily rely on recent memory, so how well lads got on in finals or semi-finals, and I think it's largely unfair at times. You know, your team of the year is a bit like you know, the player of the year in your club. It's about performances in May as much as it is in, you know, August or whatever. So yeah, I am pleading the 5th, so I can let you on now, and I can leave, and you can bring in Mr. Bambrick.
That was so nice of you to do that. To you know, Fish, on a serious note, thanks a million for your contributions. It's been great crack, and sure, best luck to Clonmore heading into Leinster or stuff like that.
He's only going back to Boland.
No, I managed to actually work today, which is very positive. I'd say there's still a few in the Monday club, but I'd say it's starting to get a bit thin now at this stage. Just finally before I do go, I suppose those games are all down for the weekend, the 21st. I think the Leinster club games, aren't they? All at home. Is that the?
Yeah, spot on. So I need to say, have you a week though? Is it?
No, we've Westmeath champions, St. Malachy's.
Okay, right. Eventually, so the junior winners will play. Sorry, St. Mullins will play either Annanock or the Harps, and Éireog will play Joseph's or Port Arlington. And you say there again, just remind us there.
We've St. Malachy's from Westmeath. They bet Milltown Pass yesterday.
Okay.
Or Saturday. Yeah.
And I think all 3 teams have a great chance, and very much looking forward to it, to be honest with you. But listen, Pete, thanks a million again.
All right.
And look after
no bother, guys.
There we go. That's Paul Byrne over and out, and standing by our good friend, Mr. Stephen Bambrick. What's the story, Steve? What?
Well, lads, how we going?
Hi, Stephen.
We're not bad. We kept you waiting a little bit behind. We're only half an hour, so that's probably early by comparison to usual timing, Stephen. As you've come to know over the last 2 or 3 years.
Yeah. So look, there's not a minute on tomorrow yet.
Yeah. Well, it's getting close to it, but yeah.
So look, up at 5:30 it is anyway.
We'll cut straight to it, and do you know what? We'll let you go straight to yours if you'd like to do it. I would say first that in terms of our teams of the year, there's no set out criteria for it as such. We just left it as a blank canvas, and everyone can, I suppose, you know, make the points in relation to why they've selected everyone, and we will ask everyone for a player of the year as well, which I think there could be consensus on already from a few little, I suppose, backstage chats. So, Steve, give it to us. Who is in the goal starting off anyway?
Well, I'm after picking a B team in the meantime when I was listening to you. So, do you want that as well? No, the lads didn't make it.
Well, I don't know who's the call out as well, and he wanted to go with honourable mentions, and I said that's kind of dishonourable though, isn't it? Like,
yeah. All right, we'll close off that one now. I'll go back. Right,
go on ahead. You have the floor.
Right. In the wind-up, I went for Chunny in goal, Cathal Kelly, Benny Kavanagh, Mark Mullen, Paddy McDonald, Josh Moore, Aaron Almond, Ed Finnegan and Brendan Murphy, Feger Fitzpatrick, Conor Doyle, Darragh O'Brien, Paul Broderick, Ross Dunphy and Colin Holton. Now when the ball is thrown in, they're not going to be playing, and I put the 15 best I thought as I could. as I see the ladies' final last Saturday. Bennekerry Tinryland were lining 6 up across the half forward line for the throw-in. So there's about 40 teams right down here, and there's been lads in and out of them all day. And there is that kind of recency bias, and there is final bias and semi-final bias, and there's no right or wrong answer. Brendan Hayden says to a lot of these questions.
Yeah, well, you know what, right? When we spoke about 3 hours ago, you did sound particularly stressed, I won't lie. And considering mine was only finalised there at about 8:30, you know, I was kind of in the same boat myself. But James and Mick, you look kind of relaxed, I suppose, in comparison. Clark, I'll start with you first. Who did you go with and why, I guess?
Yeah, again, it was hard. It was tough enough. But I went with Kieran Cunningham in goal. I just thought he's fantastic. He has everything, you know, to me. Benny Kavanagh, the nearest we'll get to Paul McGrath, I think, in this county. His reading of the game is just phenomenal. He's fantastic, you know. Shane Redmond, fullback, I put him. Just a born leader, you know. I think he's fantastic. James Hickey from the Fighting Cocks had a fantastic championship this year, you know. I thought he played well in the final, but he has had a fantastic championship. Jack McCullough, another man we may get playing for the senior footballers, halfback. I think Jack is a big, strong, powerful chap, you know. Josh Moore from Rathvilly, the captain of Rathvilly this year. I thought he had a fantastic year, centre back. Jamie Clark, how exciting is he when he gets the ball, you know, halfback, I have him. Midfield, Ian Atkinson from Old Loughlin had a fantastic year. And Fiacre Fitzpatrick, another man we'll get talking out for the footballer soon. Half forward line then, James Doyle, St. Mullins, really, really, really good player. Really impressed with him, you know, just fantastic athlete as well. And I played against him in the Junior A, and I wish I didn't because he's just super, you know. Sean Gannon, centre forward, just a leader of the pack, you know, absolutely brilliant. Darragh O'Brien, another half forward, just stepped up to the plate all this year. As Mick said earlier on, I think he really, really played fantastic this year, scored the points when needed. Full forward line, Colm Hulton, fantastic year again. Oisin Doyle Clonmore, just outstanding, you know, great prospect, and exciting to see how he gets on now in the future, you know. And the last one, corner forward for his first year senior football, Liam Gavin from Rathvilly. I thought he had a fantastic year, you know. I had 9 clubs represented there.
And fair play to you. You went down through the whole lot of them, whereas I kept mine restricted to senior as such. But you went through the whole lot, Clarky. Can you just give us the 15 again? Just wham bam, thank you, ma'am, kind of a thing. Just so.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, Kieran Cunningham.
Yeah.
Benny Kavanagh, Shane Redmond, James Hickey.
Yeah.
Jack McCullough, Josh Moore, Jamie Clark.
Mm-hmm.
Ian Atkinson, Fiacre Fitzpatrick.
Mm-hmm.
James Doyle, Sean Gannon, Darragh O'Brien.
Mm-hmm.
Colm Hulton, Oisin Doyle, and Liam Gavin.
Good stuff, yeah. And actually, Sean Gannon is someone I forgot to mention earlier. We briefly touched on Gannon and Fury, I guess, and you know, I said to Martha they played smart games, which, you know, I didn't mean to be disingenuous by suggesting that, but you could see with Sean in particular in the first half, the way he was playing the game, it was like having a manager out in the field. Like, he was just dictating things, and he was getting the ball, he was taking the wise option, you know, conserving energy, not putting himself in a position where he could get hurt. But then at crucial times in the second half, I seen him make runs, and I was like, Jesus, that lad, the hamstring is gone. And like Fury likewise came out with ball. I couldn't get over it. And to see Mark Mullen coming in at half time was particularly pleasant sight as well, given the fact that we thought none of them would play. And they all deserved the opportunity. So just to go off on a tangent on that one, when you mentioned Mr. Gannon there. Mick, you're up next.
Right, a fair bit of development in mine now. And again, like you, Kevin, I restricted it to senior because obviously some of the players mentioned, James Doyle, Oisin Doyle, etc. I think they're definitely in the mix. There's no two ways about it. But I restricted it to senior, the same as you. Now, will you hear the groans for this now? Robbie Malloy in goal. He played a game and a half, and to say he didn't make or put a foot wrong, I thought he was outstanding. I thought his kick-out performance in the match against Éire Óg in particular, 10 out of 10. I can't think of a mistake he made. If he did, I can't remember it. Do you want me to just lash through the rest of them now? Just
that is an interesting one and deserved airtime, but I get where you're coming from. So in that game and a half, he didn't put a foot wrong. Whereas maybe you felt at other stages that guys might have had a little misdemeanor here and there, yeah?
Yeah, no, and again, right, to offer the caveat that I know it was only over a game and a half, so therefore, the longer you play, the more likely you are to make a bit of a boo-boo or have a mistake. But I just thought, considering what they needed at that time in those games, I just thought he was really, really superb. And surely the goalkeepers union here, like the two lads would be afraid to have a problem with that now. There's no way they'll question me on that one now. I don't think, will you? Will you, lads?
No, there you are, lads. You have the opportunity.
Objection sustained.
But well, look, I went with Danny Moran at cornerback, Jonah Dunn and Benny Kavanagh. I don't think it's fair to judge Jonah Dunn on the final performance. Stephen mentioned recency bias. I think anyone having trouble with Ross Dunphy, I don't think that's a reason not to be on a team of the year. I think Ross Dunphy, when he's in that kind of form, you'd want 3 men to mark him, right? I went with Jack McCullough at wing back. I went with John Murphy of Tinryland at centre back, even though Josh Moore, yeah, maybe I made a mistake there. And I went for Tyg Roach at left half back. I think Tyg has had a brilliant year. He's added scores to his game, as well as being like a super athlete, great competitor, and he's adding a bit of an attacking threat there as well. I went with Fiacre Fitzpatrick and Conor Doyle in the middle of the field. Fiacre, because I think, again, there's a guy that if he had, he's obviously capable of being a brilliant dual player. I think he can pick scores, he can win ball, he's athletic, he can take a free. I think he has it all. And I thought Conor Doyle, in the absence of Brendan Murphy, really stood up. I felt that was a real coming of age performance by Conor Doyle against Éire Óg. I thought scores, winning ball, I thought he was really excellent now. Half forward line, Aaron Hammond. Aaron Hammond has had some championship. He does it all for All Auckland. He has everything. Super athlete. Is after coming back from a tough start earlier in the year for him personally. He had a few bits he had to get over there. I thought he was brilliant. Dara O'Brien, I picked at 11. Sean Gannon needs, like everything's been said about Sean Gannon. I just felt that maybe he could play within himself a little bit there and how he played. Sean Gannon has won everything that's going, every award and so on. I felt Dara O'Brien in the last couple of games really stood up with scores and with composure and with being a leader for Éire Óg as well. And I think Paddy McDonald, I picked him at wing forward as well. Again, maybe the best athlete in the county. He's up there. There can't be many better than him. He's starting to add scores. He's good at going back. He's good going forward. Full forward line. Stephen mentioned recency bias. Paul Broderick, I picked at top of the right. Ross Dunphy, I picked at full forward. And again, to reiterate the point I made earlier about Colm Hulton, I think he has really come on. We always knew about his game with the ball in his hand, but I think he's really added leadership. He's added work rate off the ball. I think he's had a great championship. But I wouldn't deny any of the lads that the boys have mentioned. Liam Gavin, as you mentioned, Josh Moore, as you mentioned. I think there's been great performances.
Okay, well, I'll actually go to Donoghue's one next there. So Johnny Fury has in the goal. He has Danny Moore and Alfie Corker and Benny Kavanagh. He's got Jack McCullough, Shane Redmond, Josh Moore. He's got Brendan Murphy and John Murphy Tinryland. He's got Conor Doyle, Dara O'Brien, Ed Finnegan. And he's got Paul Broderick, Ross Dunphy and Jamie Clark. That's Dunster's one. And you want to go my own one here now. So, no different to Mick, I think it was yourself that said it. I don't have Josh Moore in mine, and I have egg on my face over that now. And when I look at the breakdown, I've only got 2 Rathvilly lads in it, I think, which is astounding considering the season that they had, how close they came without losing the game in open play. So in hindsight, I'm not particularly proud of of the fact that I've only got 2 of them in. But anyway, I went with Kieran Cunningham in the goal as well. I think he only conceded 1 goal in the championship. You know, he made some very good saves, and yeah, went with him. Cottle Kelly, a player who has improved massively for Éire Óg, not just this year, but over the past couple of years. I have him at right corner back. Then I've got Benny Kavanagh. Sure, look, what can you say that hasn't already been said? Ty Roach, fantastic season. I mean, like, he's now added a goal scoring to his resume. Clarky, did he get 3 goals in the championship? He definitely got 2.
Definitely got 2, and yeah, Stephen might know that one, but he's had a fantastic year, 100%.
He got 2. I was trying to make it up today. I thought he got 3 as well, but I think he got 2. Got one against.
Did he leave one on a plate for, was it Mikey Bambrick or who? He left one on a plate for someone, didn't he?
Speaking of plates, like on a break one beside me here.
Very good, very good. Well, yeah, he's added that to his resume. He's able to quieten lads and get forward at the same time and get scores. And like that's something Cottle Kelly has done as well. Like he popped up with a score yesterday. Didn't he get a goal against O'Loughlin as well? Like,
yeah.
It's one thing you'd always say to a cornerback: get up the field and get a score now. That's the way the game has gone. Don't be afraid to do it. Half back line, Mark Mullen, for me, possibly the most improved player I've seen this year in championship football, along with Kelly. Obviously, it's probably toss up between the two of them. I think he just played like a seasoned veteran for a guy who effectively is only a kid in his second eligible year, I would say, of senior football. Definitely his first year playing consistently from the get-go. Jack McCullough, yeah, I mean, fantastic for Bindstown. I actually went with Paddy McDonald at left half back. I know guys move around a little bit. He probably played a little bit back there. He played everywhere really, and he was everywhere. So that's the half back line. Middle of the field, Conor Doyle and John Murphy, Tinner-Island. We mentioned it probably a little bit earlier, I think, but he was one of the leading lights I felt for Tinner-Island yesterday with how he charged forward. Probably could have done with support play, but it's not just on yesterday. He's picked it throughout the whole season. So he partners Conor Doyle. Half forward line, Aaron Almond, fantastic this year. Couldn't speak highly enough of him. Brendan Murphy, it's a real shame that Brendan's season ended the way it did. And Mick, I know you touched on, you said, these guys have done it all, they've won it all. But having said that, I suppose, and it's not in spite of your comment, it's just probably in addition to it, he was in Player of the Year form up to the semi-final. Possibly was Player of the Year. And I probably just felt it difficult from that point of view maybe to leave him out. And then there's people that would say, well, sure, you're judging him off 3 games. But if you're judging Robbie off a game and a half, Mick, I'll take 3, all right? Is that fair enough?
100%.
yeah. And we'll shake hands on that one. So Dara O'Brien then completes the half forward line. Dara, he's always led by example, a great kid. And, same this year, just fantastic. Full forward line, Paul Broderick, Ross Dunphy, Colm Hulton. And I think, do 3 of us have that full forward line?
I have Bushy
Yeah, so that brings us to Player of the Year, I guess, guys. Stevie, I'll start with you first.
Yeah, she took the words of me out there. Like Brendan Murphy, Paul Broderick, you'd be going into the last couple of games. Then Ross Dunphy, yesterday the scores 1-4 in the county final after getting the Hotty Gig and Munster Rangers. I'd be going with Ross. Conor Doyle was in there with a show as well. Like he was just savage in every game, and I'd go with Ross Dunphy.
All right, Mick, next.
Oh, it's very hard. Aaron Almond, I think, overall, what a great season he's had. I think if you took Aaron Almond out of O'Loughlin, I think he'd probably be the biggest loss that anybody could be to any team. I think what he does for O'Loughlin and the fact that they confounded expectations, and I think Aaron was such a huge part of that. I still go back to it that, and by the way, Ross Dunphy deserves all the plaudits he gets. He's brilliant. I have a feeling that Colm Hulton, I think if you look back at when he got his scores and how crucial they were at stages in games, I think he had a huge influence. I don't know. I think I'll go Aaron Almond.
Okay, Almond it is. James?
Yeah, listen, I agree with the 2 lads with everything they said. I think Colm Hulton's work rate this year is fantastic, but the one guy I will give Player of the Year to, and do you know what is it? He's just come out of himself, I think, this year. He works tremendously hard. I've played with him, played against him. and just scored crucial frees and scores from everywhere this year, and really led the line, especially when Sean Gannon went off last day, is Darragh O'Brien.
Right, interesting. And doesn't it just go to show how good the championship was when you have so many different individual performances that, we've named out contenders there, I think, from 3 different clubs. Or is it 4 different clubs? Possibly. I mean, that's the type of championship we had. I'm going with Ross Dunphy on this one. I think he's been phenomenal. Even, while he didn't shoot the lights out against Rathvilly and nobody was going to on that day, his influence, what he did, when you draw 2 or 3 players maybe to you, you're opening things up for other guys too, and that's often kind of forgotten about whenever others then come in and pick off the score. So that's the crack. Now let the abuse begin. As soon as we go off, of course, it will happen. I know when you're based in town and you're working, you're definitely going to get a bit more of it. I thankfully don't have to go too far tomorrow. So, lads, best look at that one.
You want a Pahickey coming after you for not putting Dermot Byrne on it now this time.
I don't think Pat was too happy with Joe. No, we're not having Dermot Byrne, and maybe a Michael Dial as well on the hurling team. And look, there's another guy, Dermot Byrne, very good year. I was thinking even to the relegation finals, like Conor Crowley, what he's done for Palatine at times this year, not just in the relegation final, but a real leader, like Sean Murphy, Fenna. Like, just because you end up in the relegation final doesn't mean players that don't deserve to be in a team of the year. Mick.
Well, of the 1-9 that Kilbride scored in their relegation game, Darragh Foley got all of it.
There you go. We've class everywhere. We don't know the half of it. So I saw Niall Carew there yesterday. I don't know if he was there Saturday, guys, but there's so much talent there that we simply have, in my opinion, the raw materials to do better. I hope we do better, because from what I can see, there's real quality there. We've no takers on it. We're all in agreement. Lovely. Right. Okay. So on that note, lads, have we anything else to add before we wrap it up, I wonder?
Well, the guys, just to develop that point, I think the guy's Paddy McDonald without a shadow of a doubt. I mean, if he's, again, I know he's a dual player, but Paddy McDonald, I think, has what it takes. The same as you mentioned with Jamie Clark, and that he's like Jamie Clark 2.0, I think. Like, really dynamic. Tyg Roach can definitely come in there. They're the guys, and Oisin Doyle, again from the intermediate grade, but he has what it takes. So you're right, there are fellas coming to the fore, no question.
Good stuff. Well, look, I've not more to add, I suppose, guys, unless you have. But I just want to thank you. We'll have you here for everything, whether it's writing reports, whether it's going to the games, coming on the pod. It's been great fun. The feedback's been outstanding, and thanks so much for everything, lads, over the last few weeks. All right, really appreciate it.
Fair play, Kevin. I think you're doing a brilliant job. You're brilliant.
Can Clark, you give us a tune on the piano there, lads?
It's actually broken.
Just to finish play out.
It's old tune at the moment, Stephen, but only for that I would, yeah.
Okay.
I go out to Bowlands anyway. It's better than Ibiza here at the moment. So
great stuff, lads. Thanks a million. Really appreciate it. So James Clark, Mick Keogh, and Stephen Bambrick, and just to give a shout out to Connolly's Top Line, Earth Spas, Scats Bouncing Castles, J&J Services, Seamus Byrne Electrical, Talbot Fitness, PFD Travel, The Arboretum, Ray Whelan Limited, and Carlo Electrical Services. So whatever it was for you about these championships, whether it was maybe, I don't know, the tears of Mark Fury, or whether it was the honesty and the few F-bombs from Alan Quigley, whether it was the proud father and Paddy Byrne, it was truly magical. We have a lot of memories, we won't forget them, and we were happy to play a small part in bringing them to you over the past 5 or 6 weeks. So to you, the listeners and the viewers, thank you as always. But for now, goodbye and God bless.